What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of TAETRO Talks. I'm really excited for today's show. Our guest is really amazing. We're brought to you by 343 Labs. We're broadcasting live on not only my channel, but on 343 TV, which you can find at youtube.com/343labs. It's an electronic music production school based in New York, Berlin, and of course, virtually, like we're all doing. So no matter where you are in the world, you can take classes in Ableton Live, Logic, music production, mixing, mastering, music theory, all that good stuff. Head to 343labs.com for more info on that. But I'm very excited for today's interview. I see lots of people popping off in the chat already, so welcome. I'm happy to have you all here. A couple things before we start the show. We're live every Thursday doing different interviews, and sometimes we even do call-in shows, so make sure you are subscribed and ringing the bell so that you can know when we're doing a live show. But tune in every Thursday. We're always doing something. And technical things, if technical things pop up during the stream, like it's very likely my video freezes occasionally, just let me know in chat and we'll do our best to fix it, even if we have to switch to, my janky FaceTime cam. Like I said, I can't say enough how excited I am for today's guest and the show. People in the chat, I see you all. Thank you for being here. Carlos has been here since the top. The GTV, thank you for being here as well. Manuel Gonzalez, Matthew Pim, what's up? NEH Studios, what's going on? Delirium, my mom is here. Samuel Messiah, what's going on? Michelle or Mitchell, what's going on? NEH, I already said that. I always repeat names. Visual Bug, hello. Boom Bap Art, really dope producer, YouTuber. Check out Boom Bap Art's channel if you're there in the chat. Yes, I think I said everybody. Nick Lovin is here. Scott Vincent, what's up? I see Hefe B and Chroma Beats over in the 343 Labs chat. So, folks, without further ado, I want to introduce today's guest, Gnarly, and to start things out, we're actually going to kick things off with a clip so you can see what Gnarly is all about. So enjoy this clip, and then we'll be live with Gnarly. All right, welcome Gnarly. What is going on? They all just saw a really epic clip of you jamming out on your Machina Mark III. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Hey TAETRO, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really stoked to be having this conversation and to have you on the show because we've been in touch via Instagram for a pretty decent amount of time. I've always been a fan of your videos and been following you for a while. And when I was coming up with guests for the show and trying to figure out who to have on, I'm seeing all the stuff that you're doing, especially since the pandemic and stuff you're doing with different groups that you're a part of. And just surviving as a beat maker and a content creator during this time, I think you'll have a really interesting perspective. But in the title and in your introduction, I described you as an amazing finger drummer, music producer. But one thing I like to ask all the guests is, how do you define yourself as an artist? When people say, what do you do? What do you tell them?
That's quite a hard question for me to answer because I definitely say that's kind of evolved as time's gone on. But I think I've kind of settled on being a finger drummer / producer.
For sure. Because it's interesting that the finger drumming aspect, because, a lot of producers, you don't even see what they do, or they're behind the computer and it's not as performative, but for you, it's very performance focused. Has that always been the case, or did you kind of start just making some beats and you grew into the finger drumming? I'm curious about the origins of that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't start off as a finger drummer. It wasn't something like that was intentional. I kind of fell into it, and then it became like my entire life. But I started, I guess, as a kid playing piano and stuff. And then in my early teens, I wanted to be a rapper.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I find like old tracks? Can I find like an
No.
old MySpace page or something somewhere?
No, so I used to have one. This is like, because we were talking about how my Skype name's Puri
Hmm.
Sheep, and
Hmm.
that was like
Epic
my,
Skype name.
it was my original artist name. So that was like from my rapping days. It's like super embarrassing, but I just can't get rid of it. But I
I
think
love it. I
like
don't think it's embarrassing at all. I want to come back.
like I genuinely wish that I still had some of those tracks, but I had them all stored in an old hard drive and it broke a couple years ago, so
What
I
a
just lost
shame.
all of it.
It sounds like it might have been semi-intentional,
I
trying to erase the
think
past.
it's definitely for the best, yeah.
You could always go back and re-record those tracks. Just saying, like they're not totally lost. That's really cool. I'm interested to know. I want to know about the transition from being a young kid, like playing piano, to the music production world. Like, did you have to support a family, like musically? Like, were they backing you, like wanting to be a full-on musician and artist? And then how was that transition going from, I think a lot of us take more traditional music lessons and then somehow discover our own tastes and then contemporary music and then eventually, production and beat making and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about that transition and going into that.
Yeah, so I like my family's always been quite supportive of everything. Like even when I wanted to be a rapper, and then like I got into production because I was making beats to rap on essentially.
Nice.
But like I definitely there was a point in time where I was doing classical grades on piano, and I kind of wanted to switch to doing jazz grades, and my mum wanted me to stick with classical. So I ended up ditching the lessons and like doing my own style, beat making and stuff like that. And yeah, that's kind of how I transitioned into it. But even though I stopped doing lessons, I was still learning stuff all the time, like doing tutorials or like learning covers of songs that I really loved.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's kind of similar. I wasn't a rapper, but I was doing like songwriting, and that was kind of my entry into music production. Like I wanted to produce my own songs, recording a guitar, and then like singing over them, and then eventually, it grew into like making beats. So it's very, very similar trajectory. Does your prior piano knowledge and some of that classical training inform or like does it serve you well currently like as a producer, or did it serve you well as you were like making that bridging that gap between production and your music knowledge?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I think it definitely helps to have like a solid kind of understanding of music theory. And like I did the whole school route. Like I did music GCSE, music tech A level, and then like a degree in sound arts and design. And
Nice.
like getting that like solid education, I think has definitely helped me with beat making, like knowing how to do sound design and like mixing and like just music theory as well for like composition and stuff. I think it really, really helps to have that solid education.
Totally. We have a few more people popping in the chat. Just want to say hello to what's up, Yusuf? What's up, Gamer X? Nice to see you. Visual Bug asking a question about what DAW do you use?
So I've got Ableton Live 10, and
Nice.
I use Machina as a VST in it, so that's like always in every setup that I have.
Let's get into like a little bit of controllerism talk. Did you start like with Machina, like from when you started producing and started finger drumming? Did you use other controllers? I've seen you use the Launchpad X, I believe. What controllers did you kind of start on, and what are you liking now?
So the first pad-based controller I guess that I ever had was the first gen Launchpad, and that was when
Nice.
like like all that existed was the MPC, and I kind of couldn't get into that because it was quite pricey, and
Yep.
it's like doorless as well, and I wasn't really interested in doorless stuff. I was very much into using my laptop and using that to create. So I got the first launch pad, and I didn't really know how to use it properly. I just
Same.
kind of
I have a
winged
whole video that says
it.
why I returned my first launch pad because I got my first launch pad and just like didn't know what to do and just ended up returning it. So it's been like a
Yeah.
long journey of that.
Yeah, like I've got a bunch of my old videos from like when I used to film myself producing, and like all of the buttons are flashing on the launch pad, but they're
Hmm.
definitely not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. And this is from the time probably when like light shows were like a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
I never really got that. Like it's just more about the lights, I guess. But that's crazy because back then the launch pads didn't have velocity sensitivity. Like you had to really like if you really wanted to use it, especially I think about the way your sets are now, like in that MPC or Machina style, like you really had to use it not the way it was intended.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it was definitely good as like a clip launcher.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, like I never tried finger drumming on it actually, because when I got it, I wasn't finger drumming at that point.
Hmm.
I got a push after that. And
Oh,
I
nice.
started trying to do a little bit, but I felt the pads were like quite stiff, and because they're
Hmm.
so small, I
Yeah.
felt like they weren't really good for finger drumming. And I ended up getting a Machina Mark II,
Nice.
and that's kind of when the whole finger drumming thing happened.
Epic. Um, it's interesting because people ask me all the time about Machina and Ableton, and I love both. But I do, and you're running Machina in Ableton, and I'm curious if you just shed some light for the audience on workflow with that because a lot of people will get the Machina and then they'll try to use it with just strictly Ableton and they'll be like super disappointed because obviously it's not made for that. Machina itself is really kind of its own DAW, especially well if you open it as a plugin, it's like a DAW within a DAW almost. You want to talk a little bit about kind of your workflow and how you're kind of using it within Ableton Live, just that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of completely depends on like what I'm doing, because if I'm doing like a live finger drumming set, so like what I do for my videos essentially, that's a completely different setup to how I would use it if I was doing like actual production and trying to build a track and stuff.
Totally.
So
Let's break that down for the audience. Like tell us about the two different approaches.
like for live performance, I normally just have it like very minimal. I've just got one MIDI channel with Machine as a VST. And then I'll have an audio track, which is resampling the audio from Machina into an audio track. So I'll have that set up as a stereo track. And I make sure, all my levels, all my pad sounds and everything are mixed before I actually start recording. So I get all the levels like right. And then I can just essentially record just the stereo output from that. And then that's how I make my videos and stuff. All
Yeah.
of the actual sequencing, I guess, like the sounds and stuff, is all done in Machine. Um,
And then what's your workflow in terms of just like production?
yeah, so like with production, I generally, because I like to use in
Hmm.
that case, and like looping and stuff, and I prefer to use the arranger mode rather than clip view. So I'll have Machina set up as a VST again, but in this instance, I kind of set up all of the pads to have an individual output. So each pad will go out to an audio track in Ableton, and then I'll have those record armed. So when I'm ready to record my loop, it's basically recording those drums in real time.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's a awesome workflow. And I thought it was important because I see people confused all the time. It's like, it's very similar thing to like buying a launch pad when you're like when I was a kid and like not knowing what the heck I was doing is I think a lot of people have that same confusion around Machina and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I
Um,
mean, there's so many different ways that you can set it up, but for me, like this
totally.
is the most streamlined way for me to work.
Yeah. And are you attracted to the Machina, like the pads that they just do it for you? Like the bigger pads, the sensitivity? What is it? What do you like about that controller?
Yeah, it's like all of what you just said. Um, the size of the pads is perfect. I find like the bounce of them is really good. And And I like the fact that you can like change the colors of them. So if
For
I'm
sure.
doing like a live set, you know, you can make it look really nice as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Epic. Let's talk about your finger drumming journey. Can you talk about like starting off doing that? Was it just you're getting more and more interested in the performance aspect rather than just the beat making aspect? What sparked that?
I reckon it, you know, it comes from that wanting to be like a rapper kind of thing. It's like that wanting to be a performer. And
Right.
if I wasn't going to do that vocally, I wanted to find a way to not be just a bedroom producer. You know, like when I was in my early 20s, late teens, and I was trying to figure out what I was doing with life, there was like a lot of options for me. Like I wanted to be a live sound engineer, I wanted to be a recording engineer, I wanted to do like music for film. Like doing sync was one of my big dreams,
Yeah.
and I'd still love to do that, but I kind of there was like so many different avenues. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then at some point I was like, I want to start performing my beats live.
Hmm.
And I'd been to a few live gigs and seen people like Anchor Song and Lapalux as well. And they were all using pad-based controllers to essentially like play their beats live. So I looked it up online. I was looking at a couple YouTube videos like Jeremy Ellis, and
Yes.
I was like,
Back then it was the Wild Wild West. There wasn't nearly as much out there as there is now. But when you watch
yeah,
some of those Jeremy Ellis, like Machina Micro videos, especially, like I really remember those. That's like, whoa, that's what you can do. Like
yeah.
that's just crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. Like I saw a couple of videos of Jeremy Ellis, and then there was like Jay Black was out there in those times as well. I think
For
he had
sure.
like a much smaller following than he does now, but like he's like huge. And I remember him being one of the first people that I discovered, as well as like Odd Kid Out. Um,
Yep.
so I just wanted to try it, and you know, I got a machine and it essentially sat in my studio for the first year. I didn't really use it at all, until like, I don't know, like in 2016. I guess I had quite a rough year and I just got really like absorbed into learning how to do finger drumming. And it just, yeah, it just took over from there.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us because you're a super proficient finger drummer. Like you're doing these full live sets, and you're doing like pretty long live sets. Like I've seen you do like half-hour plus sets, which
Yeah.
is like that's a performance. Like the short videos are super impressive too. Like the athleticism, I guess you could call it, of even shorter videos is impressive. But especially to be able to do it in a longer set. I'm interested how you got there. Like, what was the training process like? Like, are you, exercises? Like, what did you use to learn?
I think definitely the turning point for me was using the like 30-day beat challenge. So I started off doing that like a couple years ago, and that's kind of how I start off every year now. So every January I'll do a 30-day beat challenge just to, you know, like get me set for the year.
Yeah,
And it puts a lot of pressure on you to like create stuff and to create new stuff. And obviously I'd made so many beats by the end of the 30-day beat challenge that I started trying to do live streams of me essentially practicing all of those sets, like all of the individual tracks, like as a whole set.
for sure.
And I think also when I start doing live shows, it also puts that pressure on you to like create a performance rather than just like a short bit of content. Like being able to play for half an hour and keep people interested is like a totally different game to
Yeah,
just doing a little video.
totally. Um, I was talking about this with Sarah the Instrumentalist on a previous show about how doing one of those 30-day challenges, because you do January, right? Which is like the one that kind of a lot of people do participate in January. I did this random thing in October that I just called Beattober. I don't even think many other people did it. I think I just made it up, or somebody on Twitter sparked my imagination. But after that 30 days, it really changes your brain. Like it changes your effect, like the way you look at beat making, and makes you so much more, you can get so much faster at it just after a 30-day period. The things that took you a long time to make a decision on go so much faster.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it definitely completely changed the whole way that I work. Like it streamlined my workflow a lot because I used to spend like 2 hours on the same 8-bar loop trying to figure out like how to do it and stuff. And now it's more like painting, like I've got the image in my head and I can just
Yep.
do the strokes, and then refine it later on.
Totally. I'm curious, like there's that habit building and like the music making aspect and the 30-day challenge helping with that. I'm curious about like the actual ergonomics of finger drumming. Like, did you use any resources to like learn? Like, I know there's things like melodics out there. Did you use any of that stuff to really kind of get trained in that? Or were you really just going for it, making your own beats and just kind of getting better at different patterns?
I used melodics for like a couple months when I first started out, like maybe like 3 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was training using it, but I just found, like because you're doing it along to a grid. I think it's really great for like beginners and like especially if you never learnt music, like just generally before, because it can really help you in terms of like knowing how to keep in time and like basic rhythm and stuff like that. But for me, it got to a point where quite quickly actually that it was too rigid for me. Like I didn't feel like I was grooving with a beat or like able to actually construct my own routines just
Yeah.
from learning an exercise on an app.
Totally. But I'm sure like you were able to build some like base level skills, like base level training from it. And then you can, everybody says you learn the rules and then you learn to break the rules.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There was also like a couple of videos that I'd watched on YouTube. I'm not sure if they still exist, to be honest, but like Jeremy Ellis, his channel used to be full of finger drumming tutorials where he was teaching stuff like paradiddles, which is like a
Hmm.
drumming, like an actual drumming technique, but you can translate that onto the pads.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by that because I was teaching like in actual classrooms and an after school program for a long time. And I would use melodics as a way of kind of teaching finger drumming because it's really one of the only resources out there that, teaches this style and beat making in this way because all the other resources for music out there are either really based in classical or jazz and there's some contemporary pop stuff, but like to get finger drumming training is still a bit of a challenge, and melodics is one of the only main players in that. And for chat, if you all don't know what melodics is, it's basically like this it's Guitar Hero esque in that you have notes coming across the screen. It's showing you them in a grid, but what it does, it's really a training software. 'Cause it breaks it down for you at the beginner level, and then you build up. So you could even have the same beat at different levels, where at first you're just playing the kick, then you're adding a snare, then you're adding a third layer like a hi hat onto samples, etc. So it's a really really awesome training program. I've used a lot in teaching. I think I'm gonna like probably reapproach it to build some of my own finger drumming skills up a bit more, but I think it's cool. While I have the chat's attention, though, I want to let them all know that in the description of my video, you can find a link to Gnarly's channel, and I think that you should all go like in this moment, open it in a new tab, and click subscribe because I believe you're like super close to 1,000 subscribers, right?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
close, very close.
So like everybody in chat, like I think we can do it. If you're in chat and you're watching this, just go to my description, open link in your tab, click subscribe. Let's see how much we can move that needle on this stream. It would be if we could get it to 1,000 during this stream, like you just send her channel to all your friends while we're here too. That would be amazing. But we'll see. We'll see if we can move the needle a little bit. On that note, I'm curious to know about when content creation became a part of what you do, because it's beyond just being a beat producer and being a performer. It's also you make dope videos, and that's one of the main ways you kind of get your stuff out there. When did that become a thing in your repertoire, making content?
I'm not sure I can pin that down, to be honest. Like when I first got Instagram, it was, like when it was new and people weren't using it for like business essentially. Like
Right,
you
it
were
was
just
for
posting pictures.
photographers and cool filters. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like posting pictures of your dinner and stuff. And I started posting like videos of me practicing like finger drumming, and like looking back on them now, I've actually got a new video that I'm going to release soon, which is basically my journey over the last 5 years.
Yes, I'm stoked for
Um,
that.
but like all the old videos, like I'd film them on like my really rubbish iPhone and like with a fisheye,
We've
and
all been there.
the fisheye's never on properly, so like the whole thing's like blurred and you can barely see
I
me.
think it adds to the style because I remember like consuming your content like a while back, and like it always having like this fisheye look.
Yeah.
Like even now, I think you probably use like a GoPro and stuff now too, right? Which
Yeah.
still kind of has a fisheye look. But I remember that being like, damn, I wish I had a cool fisheye look like that. Like, so even if you say it's like janky and shot on a weird iPhone, I was like, that's cool. That's a cool style.
Oh, I'm glad it looked okay. But yeah, like I was basically doing that, and I don't know, like at some point I guess I was doing it so much that I was like, I kind of need to up the level of what my videos look like. Like you get to a certain follower count and you're like, okay, this like doesn't really cut it anymore.
Yeah,
I owe it to my fans, and I also want to be putting out good quality content.
for sure.
So I guess that just kind of happened naturally.
It's interesting because it just becomes this thing. Like I don't consider myself a videographer at all or photographer at all, but making videos and shooting cool photos is like such a huge part of what I do as a musician and music producer. And it's so funny that it just becomes this thing that you do and have to actually gain really high skills in. It's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
interesting.
I definitely think like I've picked up so many like video editing skills that like I never would have had before, and
Yeah.
like I definitely feel like I'm constantly improving, like slowly, like
Yeah.
especially with the secret sauce kind of stuff, because like we're recording and editing all that ourselves, and that's like a
Can
2 hour episode.
yeah,
So
tell everybody about Secret Sauce. What is that? What's happening? Tell us all about it.
Secret Sauce Beats is basically like a community of live performing beat makers that me and a couple of friends have kind of started up. I guess at the start of like lockdown and stuff, I was trying to figure out ways to connect everyone. We were kind of doing these beat battles on IGTV and IG Live, and like we tried a few different streaming platforms until we were able to find the one that actually worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's basically a chance for a bunch of beat makers to hang out. So we do like these monthly events where it's like a Zoom call and there's 20 beat makers and we all showcase beats and give feedback and ask questions and stuff. And it's been a really, really great way to connect with people like all over the world. So from September, we're going to start doing beat battles again. And you can enter if you want. Just send us a 1 minute video of you performing. Like you can be performing on anything. It doesn't have to be finger drumming.
Yeah.
Like you can be playing around on an SP404, playing keys, singing, whatever. And just submit a 1 minute video to us to www.secretsaucebeats.com.
Check that out, chat. SecretSauceBeats.com. I guess this is a good segue into, you are a live performer and you were playing out a lot, like out of just, your room, like out on stages with crowds of people and these, beat collectives everywhere. Like I think about the LA beat scene here and your beat scene, especially the Secret Sauce group that you have. This all used to be stuff we could go in person and do and put on shows and like people could have a good time. How have you been adapting? Like what was the impact of the pandemic on you as an artist?
It hasn't been like as terrible as I know it has been for a lot of people. So like my partner, for example, he's a beatboxer and
Mm-hmm.
he makes his bread and butter from touring. So like especially in the summer, that's like peak season for him
Yeah.
basically. Like he's had all of his shows cancelled. Like for me, I had like a few shows booked in, but because the majority of the work that I do is online, or like me working at home from my studio, it hasn't affected me so much on that kind of level. But it definitely has been a game changer because I quit my like normal job
Mm-hmm.
like at the end of last year with the idea to basically become like a freelance full-time finger drummer, so like doing shows and stuff. And I had a bunch of them booked in. They've all kind of been postponed or cancelled. So that was definitely kind of hard at first to figure out, exactly what I'm going to do. But because I got this background of doing stuff online and video editing and all that kind of stuff, it hasn't been too much of a difficult transition for me in terms of like having to do that stuff like more as the main focus, I guess, rather than real life performances.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear because I went through a similar thing. I also think about all the people who made very similar moves just like you just before the pandemic of like, you know, wanting to take a shot at the freelance thing and then boom, pandemic, you know, like I think of all the people who were probably struck by that. And then I think I was fortunate because I made a move to freelance like over a year ago. So I had kind of a year to get my footing. And then once this hit, I kind of knew I had to accelerate some things, but I kind of knew what I needed to do to, you know, still survive. I'm curious to know, as it hits and you realize like, okay, I got to do everything from home. Like what changed for you? What did you have to really, what did you end up like ramping up effort in? What kind of skills were you leading on and what problems were you trying to solve and figure out in order to, you know, really make things work now that we are all stuck at home anyway?
Yeah, I mean, like probably the main thing was figuring out like a solid income source. Because that had initially been through from doing events. And so like with the whole summer season cancelled, no festivals, or anything, I had to kind of refigure out how I was going to generate an income. If it wasn't going to be from shows, how else was I able to do that? And I'd been thinking about doing finger drumming lessons for quite a while. So for me, that was kind of like, it seemed like the most sensible choice for me to start doing like lessons and
Yeah,
one-to-ones and stuff, to know that I'm getting a solid income from that kind of thing. Because, you know, like putting out releases and stuff, it can take quite a while for you to be able to see any return from that.
of course.
And obviously having quit my job only like 6 months prior to when the pandemic started, and like running very low on savings, I had to kind of try and figure out how I was going to deal with that.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like actual like quality of content and stuff, I feel like because I've had all this time to be at home and work on stuff, my skills in terms of like video editing, production, and even live streaming have like, you know, like really raised the bar.
For sure. It just becomes this instinctive thing, and I think this is everything you just said is super important for chat to hear because the whole music industry is struggling with this at the moment, where so much of the music industry is built around live performance, and you know that doesn't just go for the performers, that goes for all the folks who worked in lighting, who worked in sound, who worked on stages, you know, that kind of thing. And it's really easy, I think, because we have a lot of younger folks and a lot of beginners in the chat and in our community. It's super important to like just listen to that story that you just told and say like, okay, yes, it's a scary thing that's happening, but like, what can I still do? What is actually possible from home? So it's like, okay, you can do lessons like that off the top. For me too, I was also not putting so much effort in lessons, and then when it work from home became a real thing, it's like, okay, it's kind of a really an easy lift to just start doing private lessons and kind of share the knowledge and provide income for myself that way. And I think a lot of people get locked into this mentality of, okay, I'm just the artist, I'm just the producer, I'm just the, you know, beat maker. But really it's like a holistic approach to being an artist. Like you become great, like you said, at video and streaming, and then you also share the knowledge like you're teaching that can provide real value to somebody. I think that perspective and that story you just showed is really important for the audience to really understand this like whole full circle thing you have to be committed to if you really want to survive as an artist.
Yeah, for sure. Like I definitely think like sharing the knowledge, especially like in hip hop, it's such a big part of it, like passing on that knowledge. And I've actually really been enjoying teaching as well. Like it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool to see someone that's like a total beginner and over 6 weeks they've like, you know, like surpassed even what you could do in 6 weeks. Like
Yeah,
I've seen like students that have like progressed so quickly, like in comparison to like how I was doing at the time, which is really cool and it's really, really rewarding as well.
for sure. Um, Maybe we can go back in time a little bit because I'm interested to hear about this, as I always am interested in hearing about creators who make the leap from having, you know, full-time jobs, like normal jobs, I guess you could say, to like then taking a big step to saying like, okay, I'm going to go freelance. I'm going to go head on into this artist thing. Can you talk about like that time in your life and what led you to making that decision and How did it feel making that decision? Like, was it super scary? And like looking back, what do you think about that decision now?
It was terrifying at the time. Yeah, it was really scary. I tried to do it when I was a bit younger, and I just didn't have the discipline for it. So I quit my job, and then I didn't have a plan, and I was essentially just, like not really doing much for about 6 months before I
Yeah.
then had to find myself another job.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I worked my butt off, really. Like
Yeah.
I'd really worked hard for maybe like the last 2 3 years, before I made the decision to do it again. And it got to the point where in the last year at my job I was working 4 days a week as like a restaurant manager, which is like a really stressful job
For
anyway.
sure.
And then on all my days off, I was doing gigs, like workshops, speaking on panels. I was having to like fly to other countries to do shows and stuff
Wow.
as well, like rehearsals and stuff. And like about 6 months had gone, and I hadn't had a real day off. So that was kind of when I was like, okay, like I need to like, stop trying to balance this and
Yeah.
just commit and like take that leap of faith essentially, and like really try to like make it work as a musician. And like when I quit at the time, like I'd given my boss like 3 months notice because I'd like really planned it out, and I had like a 6 month plan and stuff.
Tell
But
me
then
about that. Let's stop. Let's go into like tell me about the 6 month plan. Like, what is in the mind of the person who wants to go full freelance artist? Well, what do you think? How are you mapping out those 6 months?
I guess like kind of what I was gonna do. Like I had a few shows booked in, but then it was also like I was gonna try and push the content to then get more shows on top of
Yeah.
that, as well as like basically applying to a whole bunch of festivals because we have tons of them in the UK. And it's like a really good way for you to get your feet as like a touring artist. So I was gonna do that. I had like a whole EP planned out, and basically like a release schedule. So I had like a bunch of projects that I'd been planning to work on. And then I was going to basically do that over time. But then the pandemic hit, and it kind
Yeah.
of like blew that whole entire plan away. But I think it's kind of been really like a blessing in disguise in some ways, because in the back of my mind, I always had, if this doesn't work out in 6 months, I can just go and get myself another normal job and
Yeah.
like carry on that grind of working and then trying to do music as well.
I think that's always the thing that like people forget. It's like you could take like a bit of time. Like if you really, I think it has to reach a point, like you said, where like something's got to give. Like you're working your normal job, but you also have your artist side. And now that the artist side is growing and growing, it's becoming more consuming. So you need the time. So when you get to that point and you take the plunge, if it doesn't work out, you can always just get another real job, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think people always forget that.
Yeah. Like I totally had that in the back of my mind, but then obviously now like it's so hard to go out
Yeah.
and get one of those kind of jobs. So it it basically like took away my plan B and made me like have to really work hard at, becoming a self-sufficient freelancer.
Totally. And the skills that you've built too, like your skills are now beyond just, music and beat production like we talked about before, but like if you really needed to pick up like a freelance like editing job or video job or like even just consulting on like, oh, this group wants to do this big live stream thing. You did secret sauce. How did you do that? Like you're now a consultant for things like that. Like it explodes beyond just music. I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, there was another thing where like I was basically getting recognized by customers at the shop.
Ah,
So
that must
like,
have been quite disruptive.
yeah, like it's not that it's embarrassing, but it's just kind of like you're there at your day job and then people be like, "Hang on, aren't you a producer?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Well, I think that that's such a like that's why I like having these conversations, like telling these stories like from the ground up, because people have this perception of folks online that this is all we do. Like we just make content. Like that's the only thing that we do. When in reality, they don't know. Like I'm sure there are many of my subscribers who had no idea that for like the first 3 years of my channel, I was working at an after school program every single day. Like I'm sure nobody knew that. And I'm sure like there's a bunch of your followers like had no idea you were working at a restaurant, but like that's the reality of it. It's not that we're trying to hide it. It's just like we're representing ourselves as producers online because that's who we are as artists. We're not hiding things, but that's the reality. Like we gotta eat at some point while we're building.
Yeah, for sure. And like, there's nothing to be ashamed of, like working hard
Of
to
course.
make your bread and butter. Like, there's, like I think it builds character. It gives you strength to like have to go through those kind of struggles, I think.
Especially working in a kitchen or like in a restaurant like you said, because that was my like first job, and like working like through college too. This is just a sidebar, but I think everybody should have to work in a kitchen just because like that teaches you like hard work for real, for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but that's a conversation for a different podcast. I'm curious about, because now that you are going really head on into this content thing, because what choice do we all have at this moment? What is your relationship like with social media, and how do you balance it mentally in your head? We talked about like you're growing your YouTube following, and I think it's so interesting when artists like have a big following like you do on Instagram, and then they try to build up other platforms. I went through a very similar thing, but in reverse. I had a bigger following on YouTube. I was trying to build up Instagram. Like, what is your mental relationship with social media as an artist?
Um, I don't know. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship. Like, I hate the fact that I spend so much time on it, but it's also like I kind of like doing that because like you make connections. Like, even though it's online, you still make these kind of connections with other people out there.
Yeah.
Like for example, like there's a whole bunch of other producers and beat makers that I speak to online, and that's been really, really great for just connecting with people. Because it can sometimes be a bit hard, especially when you're a beat maker. You spend so much time on your own, like relating to normal people as well. So I really enjoy the online interactions with other beat makers.
Yeah.
But like there is like a weird thing of just like I guess like trying to grow your following and stuff.
Yeah.
So like it's like never enough. Like I don't really know how to describe it. It's a bit, I don't know.
It's hard to not judge your work based on the likes. Like it's very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something you struggle with at all, but like and you especially, like somebody like who has such an amazing skill set, not only like the music but like visually watching somebody do that is so amazing to watch and takes so much work, and as you've put in so much training and time. It's just, but you must know how it feels, because I feel it all the time when you make a video, you make a piece of content and put all that effort into it, and it doesn't do as well as you hoped it would, whatever that
Yeah.
imaginary number is in our heads.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I always find like sometimes I'll put up a video that I'm like, oh, this is just a throwaway beat, and then that one does really
Does the
well.
best.
And then
Yeah, of course.
one that I've like worked really hard on, maybe won't do as well. But I've also found like depending on the platform, like things kind of I guess like the reach is very different depending
For
on
sure.
what kind of platform you're on. So like even from Instagram to Facebook, like it's
Yeah.
like crazy, like the difference.
Yeah. So are you doing a lot on Facebook? I'm curious to know, because I do very little. Like I focus so much on YouTube and so much on Instagram. I do very little on Facebook because I just mentally can't go on Facebook, and we all know how Facebook is. We all have those relatives. But
Yeah.
like, how are you using Facebook as an artist? Are you having a lot of success on there?
So like I guess I was kind of like similar to you. Like I really hated going on Facebook. I basically never used it. And then I think it was kind of at the beginning of this year. I was like, I'd been stuck on 500 likes on Facebook literally until about January, February this year. And I started to like post the same videos that I was posting on Instagram on Facebook, and then sharing them to a couple of beatmaker groups. And I find that my reach generated on Facebook has like skyrocketed like
Wow.
insanely, whereas on Instagram I'm probably not getting as much reach as I used to.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The algorithm's just ever changing. And I think it's an important lesson for the audience. Like, take the same content that you're making and just make it easier for people to access it on all the platforms. I think I definitely went through this, getting caught up in like, I'm not going to post the same video that I posted on YouTube on Instagram. Well, once I got over that, like huge growth, like posting to both platforms, even if it's the same content. Some people cross over and see it twice and don't mind it. Some people only see one, and that's how they experience the content. But if you didn't upload it there, they might have never seen it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
cool.
I think like majority of people like will only see it on that one platform. Like
Yeah.
I don't find there's like that much crossover. There's maybe a couple of people, but majority of the people are like completely different on each
Yeah,
platform.
and the people who do see it twice are usually like your diehard dedicated people, so they don't mind that they've seen it twice. They're just happy to, see your content on whatever platform it is. That's really, really cool. Real quick, I want to take a quick break before we end because we're getting close to the end, and tell people in the chat, oh, hey, Accurate Beats is here. Hello, Accurate. Guys, go to Accurate's channel as well and click sub. I see a couple other people. Kyle, if you guys have questions for Gnarly, now is the time to start typing them in the chat. I see Chroma Beats and Michael Grauman over in the 343 chat. Hello, hello, welcome. Bunch of new people in the TAETRO chat as well. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Bosch. Good to see you. So if you all have final questions for Gnarly, type them in the chat now because I'm going to do my little ad break, my little spiel, and then we will answer any final questions. But yeah, we're brought to you today by 343 Labs, which is an electronic music production school in New York, Berlin, and online. So you can take classes virtually no matter where you are. Classes for all levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced, in multiple settings. So that's in Ableton, that's in Logic. And then we also have mixing and mastering, music theory, songwriting, and some new classes coming to the course catalog. We've got classes for kids. So if you're younger, we've got a specific summer program, actually one summer program starting on Monday for kids. If you're a parent or if you know some young teens in your life that need something to do, you should definitely head to 343labs.com and check out the course catalog. Also, would love to just hear your feedback on the website, 343labs.com, and check it out. More importantly is that in the description of this video is Gnarly's YouTube channel, and you should all go click on that link and subscribe because Gnarly is so close to 1,000 subscribers, and I think that would be amazing to get you there to 1,000 subscribers, or at least move the needle a little. So folks, if you haven't yet, I saw a bunch of people, actually the last time I said that, Gnarly, a bunch of people went through and said like sub. So hopefully we see a little bit of an uptick. Somebody said, Bowden says so close to 1K. Yes, so close. Let's push it over the edge. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna dive in here. People are asking some questions. We kind of talked about this earlier, but I guess I can follow up. Your views on the push. I know you said you originally had a push. You felt like it was stiff. Pads weren't big enough. Have you tried push 2 at all? Do you just feel like what you've got with Machina Mark III is good enough? Like, what's your views on push, new push, all that?
Yeah, I had a Push 2. I had both of them
Oh,
actually.
yeah. Oh, okay.
I
Cool.
bought the original one, and then 6 months later the new one came out, which is typical. So I ended
Yeah,
up
it always happens.
trading in the old one and getting the new one. So I've tried both, and it was the same problem on both of them. Just the pads too small and too stiff for my liking.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't you wish Ableton would just come out with a like bigger pad controller, just like
oh
a
yeah,
4x4 grid? Like that would be so clutch.
yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
it's made by Akai as well, right? The controller. So
First, that's the interesting thing. The first one was, and then the second one they moved to just doing it in house at Ableton. So I don't know if there's I won't speculate, but who knows? There could be some drama afoot. Let's see. Somebody's asking this question. Yeah. So Yusuf does ask about like how do you get that good at finger drumming, which we kind of covered, and this stream will be up later, folks. So if you tune in later, you can watch from the beginning and hear some of the insight. But any just like quick tips, like you can repeat a little bit of what you said earlier, or like anything just quick that you can give Yusuf get good at finger drumming. What's he got to do?
just practice, consistent practice, like daily. So doing at least like half an hour a day, and then trying to set yourself like something like a 30-day beat challenge. If 30 days is too like overwhelming for you to begin with. Like try a 7-day challenge or something and build up to it. But I think definitely doing those 1-a-day challenges helps to put that pressure on you to improve in a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's another thing about the pedagogy, like the teaching of this stuff that doesn't exist, is like people don't get that what you just said about like the discipline of 30 minutes a day, try to do a daily challenge, which you would if you went to a piano lesson, your piano teacher would tell you, practice 30 minutes a day, practice an hour a day, and we're not there yet. I mean, we're pretty close to there. I mean, you're here talking about it on YouTube, so I
I
guess
think
we're there.
I still have nightmares about my old piano teacher who she like made me keep a diary which I had to get my mum to sign
Oh
like
no.
every single day, saying how much practice I did.
You love to see it. See, but now that we're like taking on this not new, but in the new generation of musicians and, music producers, we can learn from the mistakes of our parents, and we cannot be quite like that. But it does still require discipline. I think that's an important point that people miss with music production. All right, scroll through some more questions here. Manny has a question about MIDI controllers with keys. What are your thoughts? Are you using a keyboard controller at all? What controllers do you like?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of keyboard controllers. I've got, maybe you can see it behind me, I've got an
Mm-hmm.
S88 by
Nice.
Native Instruments. So that's fully weighted keys, just because I come from a piano playing background. So that's what I prefer. I'm not really into synthy keys, like
Mm-hmm.
semi-weighted. They don't,
Yeah,
I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me.
that's
Um,
clutch.
yeah, I mean, I've got a Korg Mini Log XD as well. It's sweet.
Nice. Yeah, I watched your video with that. That's so dope. Do you find yourself using a lot of like outboard gear in conjunction with your DAW and stuff, or is that maybe one of your only pieces?
That's definitely my only piece, my
Oh,
first and only piece. Yeah, I mean,
nice.
I like the idea of expanding it, but I also really like having a streamlined workflow.
Totally.
So yeah.
I'm with you there for sure. Um, Question about Beat Block from Dios94. Now, I've shared my views on Beat Block, and my thing is like just make stuff and make bad stuff, because like beat block means like you sit and your like hands physically don't work, I feel. But like, what's your thoughts on feeling creatively blocked and not being able to get stuff done?
There's a whole bunch of things you can do to overcome it. So, I mean, like you were saying, just sit down and make anything, whether it's good or not good. Like, it doesn't matter, just make anything. But I think also, for me, a way for me to get out of it has been doing like covers or remixes of songs that I really like,
Nice.
which can kind of help you to feel a bit more inspired if you're not, I don't know, I guess able to come up with anything original.
Yeah, it is a different part of your brain that you use when you're recreating something versus trying to pull something onto a blank page.
Yeah, and like you can totally do like a cover and kind of make it your own. Like take those chords or something that you really like in something and change it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. GamerX asked a kind of technical question about opening up. Call in on Monday, GamerX. Show on Monday's a call-in show. I'll answer all your technical questions. Folks, I think we're one away from 1K on Gnarly's channel. So if you want to be that one person that can go over there, if Bowden
What?
is correct, if Bowden is correct, we're one away from 1K. So if you want to be that one person, can we actually check this? I can. We have the power. Let's go. Let's do this. I'm gonna go to your channel right now, and that's super exciting. If we did move the needle that much.
Others.
Chroma Beats has a few different questions here. What is the best way of conceding? Oh, question about confidence. So Chroma Beats is a persistent viewer on the 343 Labs channel. Oh god, I'm afraid my computer is going to melt if I try to open your channel right now, so we'll trust the crowd. So Chroma Beats is a regular viewer of the 343 Labs channel, and Chroma Beats is kind of a beginner, just starting out in music production, and I think Chroma Beats is feeling down a lot. Like, I think it's super hard as somebody who's just starting out to keep confidence. Like, I think seeing stuff like yours, like, is super aspirational, and everything I consume, like artists that I love, some of the artists that are in the chat, like super aspirational stuff, but I can see that view of looking at artists, great artists with super capable technical ability and feeling like, shoot, I'm never going to get there. Can you speak like to the beginners in the audience and like how they can keep their confidence and how they can keep pushing through?
We all start somewhere. Like before I started on my finger drumming journey, like even in the very beginning, like I felt like I had a lot of confidence issues. And like social anxiety is something that I like generally deal with anyway. So like it's kind of like a mind over matter kind of thing. Like work on your craft, work hard, do the best that you can do, and be yourself. And that's all you can do at the end of the day. Like if you put in that time, like those 10,000 hours working on your craft, that's going to show at some point. Maybe it doesn't right now and you're not at where you want to be at right now, but it will. It's just about being persistent and not giving up. Because we all start somewhere. Like I wasn't always really good at finger drumming. And it took me just like being really obsessive about it really to get to a level where, like now it's not even a confidence thing. Like I just know that I can perform a set. Like I know that I'm solid, and that's come from me putting in that hard work.
Yeah, I think the 10,000 hour rule of Chroma Beats is something to keep in mind. If you haven't heard of it before, it's like to be an expert and to be super proficient at something, you got to put 10,000 hours in. And like Gnarly just said, if you are feeling like giving up, if you're not where you want to be at this moment, you have to trust the process and just look at it like a marathon and not a sprint. You're not going to all of a sudden wake up one day and, be where you want to be. It's a very gradual process, and if you stick with it, that is really the only thing you can do is stick with it. There is no giving up. If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a music producer, we don't just give up. It's a long journey. If you do give up, then you're giving up the idea of being an artist and the idea of being a music producer. It's never going to come easy to anybody. Everybody's journey is different. Some people's take longer, some people's take shorter, but trust in the process. And if you put in that 10,000 hours, which sounds enormous right now, but if you break it down, if it's an hour a day, it'll take you 10,000 days. But if it's 2 hours a day, 3 hours, 5 hours, whatever you can put in, you will get there eventually. It's about putting in the time and putting in the work and not giving up specifically. Thank you, Gnarly, for being here and being super inspirational to all of our, community. And I'm looking at your channel right here. I wasn't just texting on my phone, and I'm seeing 1K subscribers.
Thank you guys so much.
That's amazing.
That's
thank you
awesome.
to everyone in the community who jumped in and did that. You won't be disappointed. So hopefully when you're over there, you rang the bell because there's so many dope videos. Like just binge that channel, like binge it like it's Netflix, and you will be super inspired about finger drumming, about beat making, all of it. That's super amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show and talk to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really great chatting to you.
And can you shout some of your links? Like, I don't know if you're stacked on students or if you're still taking lessons. Would love to hear the link so people can go check that out, and shout out the secret sauce again. You want to just shout some of your stuff?
Yeah, so you can, if you're interested in lessons, I've got a couple of spots left. It's like very limited spaces. But you can hit me up on Instagram, just send me a DM, or you can email me, info@gnarlymusic.co.uk. If you want to check out any of my stuff, go to my website as well, gnarlymusic.co.uk. It's got all my links and, like everything you need to know if you want to check out anything. And yeah, we're on the hunt for live performing beatmakers. So if that's you, come and join us over at secretsourcebeats.com. Send us a video. Hopefully we'll get you involved in the battles or in one of the jams. And it'd be really great to connect with all of you.
What I would say is go to Gnarly's website, take the lesson, become a really dope performing beat maker, then submit to Secret Sauce. It's almost like cheating. That's kind of like, yeah, you would be a biased judge in that case. No, but that's awesome. That's a lot to offer. Thank you so much for being on the show. Loved having the talk. We have a lot of people sending love in the chat as well, Dilirum, Yusuf. A lot of people really, really enjoyed this interview. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you so much for having me, TAETRO, as well. It's been really, really lovely evening chatting with you.
For sure. And make sure you all tune in every Thursday. We have a different interview show. We've got a really cool guest next week. Make sure you're following 343 Labs and, my socials, because we'll be announcing that really soon. Every Thursday, I do a call-in show on my channel. You can call in and ask for advice every Monday. So stay tuned for that as well. And, new content all the time from myself and Gnarly. Make sure you're subscribed to all the channels. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of TAETRO Talks. This has been TAETRO and Gnarly.